As you all know, the Utah Jazz have just been eliminated from the NBA playoffs by the Dallas Mavericks. Another year where the Jazz have been extremely disappointing. The series started off with the Mavericks not even having Luka Doncic for the first three games, and yet the Jazz still only managed to win one out of those three games. With how poorly the Jazz played this playoff series, it is no wonder that trade rumors have rapidly started to emerge involving the Jazz. So for today, what I have for you is potential trades that I think that we could see the Jazz do. I have worked up some trades involving Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, and Rudy Gobert, the three big contract players and the three players to really look out for in a potential Jazz trade this offseason. We're going to start off with the Mike Conley trade. Obviously, nowhere near the caliber player that Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell is, but this is definitely a player who has been extremely disappointing, is already 34 years old, and is horribly on the perimeter playing defense, which is something the Jazz could really need to improve on. So with that being said, I have in this trade Mike Conley getting traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in return for Ivica Zubac, Luke Kennard, a 2023 second-round pick, and a 2025 second-round pick. The second-round picks don't matter really as much at all. It's just to sweeten the offer for the Jazz. But really, the Clippers need a point guard, right? Reggie Jackson isn't a pure point guard like Mike Conley is. He's more of a score-first type of player. The Clippers would love to have a player that like Mike Conley, who's a pass-first guy, a very high IQ guy, because the Clippers are looking to win a championship, obviously, next year. The Clippers would be giving up Luke Kennard, who is a fantastic shooter, and Ivica Zubac, who is a good low-post big man and can hold his own defensively and a fantastic rebounder. And really, this trade is just for the Jazz to get off this big Mike Conley contract. I also only see a trade like this happening if the Jazz decide to trade Rudy Gobert. And speaking of Rudy Gobert, I have trades involving Rudy Gobert right here. The first Rudy Gobert trade I have is between the Jazz and the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are a team in desperate need of a big move this offseason if they want to take the next jump to a real championship contender. A big problem with them this season was their interior defense and their lack of size. Vucevic is not a good defender, but bringing in the best shot blocker in the league would definitely help. So with this trade, I have the Jazz sending Rudy Gobert to the Bulls, and in return, the Jazz acquire Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, and a 2026 top 5 protected first-round pick. With this trade, the Bulls are acquiring the big man they need, and in return, the Jazz are getting off this massive contract, getting two young players like Patrick Williams and Ayo Dosunmu who could really help out with their future, and getting Nikola Vucevic on the last year of his deal. Yes, he's not a good defender, and without Gobert, the Jazz would be a horrible defensive team. But because he's on the last year of his deal, they could either look to move him at the trade deadline or just wait the year until his contract is up. In this scenario, I think this is really a win-win scenario, a win-win trade for both teams. Another potential suitor for Rudy Gobert is the Charlotte Hornets. This team is in desperate need of a big move to really push them to a playoff spot. They've barely missed out on the playoffs for the last 2 years, and with rising star Miles Bridges really breaking out this year, and obviously they have all-star player LaMelo Ball and role players like Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward, adding Rudy Gobert to this team would be absolutely devastating for other teams in the league. This mix of offense and defense would be fantastic. So in this trade, I have the Hornets receiving Rudy Gobert and the Jazz receiving James Bouknight, PJ Washington, Kelly Oubre, and Mason Plumlee. Some might even consider this trade a steal for the Hornets, given that the Hornets don't even have to give up a first-round pick. But to me, I think with the amount of depth that the Hornets would have to give up and giving up all four of Bouknight, Washington, Oubre, and Plumlee, giving up an extra pick would be off the table for the Hornets. And on the Jazz side of it, getting three young guys in Bouknight, Washington, and Oubre, and a solid replacement center for a year, Mason Plumlee, who's on the last year of his contract, is a great deal, especially if you're the Jazz and you really think it's time to shake things up. The final Rudy Gobert trade offer I have is between the Jazz and the Golden State Warriors. This is not a real trade that I even think the Warriors might end up wanting to do or even needing to do, because the Warriors still have a chance to win the finals this year. And I think if they win the finals this year, there's a very low chance of this happening. But if the Warriors happen to lose the finals, not win the finals this year, or not even make the finals this year, I think a trade for Rudy Gobert could definitely be on the market. With rising star Jordan Poole really coming out of his shell in the playoffs, and Wiggins not showing up the way an all-star player should, I think the Warriors would be looking to trade a guy like Andrew Wiggins. So the package I have the Warriors sending to the Jazz is Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, and Moses Moody, and in return, they get Rudy Gobert. The Warriors will be able to run a lineup of Gobert, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, and Steph Curry, which sounds absolutely devastating for any teams to play. It would be the best front court defense possibly that we've seen in a very long time, and the combination of those three guards would be absolutely devastating and would make up for the lack of shooting of Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert. In return, the Jazz are getting Andrew Wiggins, who, while yes, hasn't been playing nearly as well as he did in the first half of the season, in the second half of the season, especially in the playoffs, they are still getting an all-star player who is still fairly young. They're getting James Wiseman, who could be their replacement center long-term for Rudy Gobert, and they're getting Moses Moody, who the Warriors really don't have enough depth, don't have so much depth that they don't even need to play him, but Moody can be a very, very good 3-and-D player in the NBA, I believe. Now, to get to the part of the video that most of you probably clicked on the video in the first place for, Donovan Mitchell trade offers. For me, in my opinion, I think the potential of Donovan Mitchell getting traded is extremely low, even if he does request for a trade. I think if Donovan Mitchell does not request a trade, there is no chance that he gets traded. But we're looking at a scenario where Mitchell requests a trade and what potential packages the Jazz can receive for Donovan Mitchell. So the first trade offer we have is between the Jazz and the Heat. The Heat acquired Donovan Mitchell and give up a whole lot to get him. They give up most likely going to be the Sixth Man of the Year winner, Tyler Hero, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, a 2022 first-round pick, a 2024 first-round pick, and a 2027 first-round pick. To me, I think the Heat might even have to give up a little bit more to get Mitchell. But that's just how I personally feel about Mitchell. I value him very highly, and I think the Jazz obviously will value him very highly. But in this scenario, the Heat would love to get a guy like Donovan Mitchell to really boost them to a finals contending team. If they are, I think they are already right now. But if they happen to just barely come short of winning the finals or making the finals, I think if Mitchell is on the market, they would pull the trigger in taking him. It would finally get a real elite scorer and a real consistent scorer, which Butler can be in the playoffs, but not throughout the regular season. You would still keep core players like Bam Adebayo and Kyle Lowry on the team. Yes, you are losing depth, and you are losing shooters in Hero and Duncan Robinson, who might be the two best shooters on the team, but this Heat team is still a very deep team and possibly the deepest team in the entire league. Overall, I think if Mitchell requests a trade, this is a great deal for the Jazz as well, because you're getting a star young player in return in Tyler Hero, a young shooter like Duncan Robinson, and a young potential backup point guard like Gabe Vincent, and 3 first-round picks. The next Donovan Mitchell trade I have is between the Utah Jazz and my New York Knicks. You've probably heard rumors all over about the Knicks and their interest in Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks really need to make a splash move in order to boost this team back into the playoffs where they were just 1 year ago. And Donovan Mitchell is the right player if you really want to make a splash move. In this trade, I had the Knicks getting Donovan Mitchell and giving up Julius Randle, Cam Reddish, Emmanuel Quickley, their Dallas 2023 first-round pick, which is top 5 protected, and a 2027 first-round pick, which is also top 5 protected. Yes, the Knicks are giving up a lot in Randle, Reddish, Quickley, and 3 firsts. But to pull off a trade for Mitchell, you're going to have to give up that much. Quickley and Reddish are 2 very young players and potential rising stars. The Jazz would also love to get a perimeter defender like Cam Reddish. And Julius Randle would not have much value to the Jazz, being that he wouldn't really fit a rebuild because he's slightly older, and his value has significantly dropped after this past season. But if Donovan Mitchell does request a trade, the Knicks will definitely be one of the first teams to offer a trade. But this deal might not even be enough to get it done. We might see the Jazz only give up Mitchell if they get a player like RJ Barrett in return. And if that is their request, I don't know if the Knicks would accept. But obviously, we would have to wait and see because we never know what can happen in the NBA. But that does it for the potential trades that I think we could see the Jazz make in this offseason. We could see all three of Gobert, Mitchell, and Conley potentially getting traded. It is definitely possible. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. And as always, I hope you're here for the next video.